Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm so sorry, I totally forgot to film the bit where I show all the pieces that I'm using, so I will run through those with you now. I have got the Fawn Shadow Box card. I have the Fawn Shadow Box card Park add-on and the Spring add-on, and I am going to use a variety of all those different die cuts. So many die cuts. This card took a long time to do, even for me, not just putting this together for you guys. So for the shadow box, I'm actually going to stick this so that the inside piece, or so that the tab, sorry, that I'm sticking here is actually on the back of the shadow box. And there's a reason for this, because we're actually going to put this whole shadow box inside a card. I thought this was a cool thing to try, and so I'm going to also show you a couple of the things here. There's a grassy add-on, there's this little flower border add-on between the dies that I've said about, and so I'll show you how I put together one of the flowers and then I will put the rest of them together, because it's a little, again, it's a time-consuming thing, because it's lots of little pieces to put together the flowers, but they look so pretty. It's worth doing, and the more you do, the better it looks. Like, the more full this card, the more I was doing, the more full it looked, and then the better it looked, because there was so much in there. But I won't make you sit through all of them. So with the Spring add-on, there's the little flower border, and there's a tulip flower, which is the pink one that I've cut here. There's the, what I'm going to call the daisy flower, and that has two layers to it. So there's what I'm putting on as the yellow layer, which you could just leave as a solid piece like that, or you could layer it up, which I'm going to do with the yellow for the center of the flower, and then the outer piece is going to be in purple. And I will do this for all my flowers. All my flowers are going to be the same throughout the card. So these are the teeny tiny little purple flowers that go on top there, but it just makes such a difference to putting all these little guys together. And it doesn't take that long. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of them, and I had to go back and make some more. And one thing I will say right off the bat, make sure that you have enough of whatever green or brown or whatever color you decide to do any of these things. There's a lot of green and a lot of brown in this because of the trees and the grass and that, and blue for the background. Make sure that you have enough of those colors. I actually ran out of some of my green and brown, so I had to improvise, but I managed to get enough for the inside, so the outside is the one that looks different. But so you have to forgive me here. It's been a while since I've made one of these, so I was trying to figure out, and it's honestly, Kelly does a fantastic video on these shadow box cards, and they are actually really easy to put together. But I first of all put it in the wrong place so that it was the wrong way around, and then I changed my mind and decided I had to start on the other side panel, which is where you're going to put each of these pieces to start with before you actually layer things up. So I've got, trying to decide roughly where I want that one, and then getting it stuck, just the tab on the side, and then of course I stuck it on skew. So, you know, this was going well to start with, I will say. And then sticking the grass a little bit further forward. It's fine in the end, but honestly, I would watch her video. And then what you would do is you would then close the other side panel, which I will do in a bit. But before I do that, I actually want to decorate the back of my card. So the card, the Park add-on, has some trees in it which fit perfectly in and around the shadow box. So I'm going to add some of this, the like tree, the leafy bit, and then the tree trunks themselves. So I'm just getting some tape going here. A lot of tape. Wet adhesive would have worked better, but you guys know, if you watch some of my recent videos, you know that I've had trouble with my wet adhesive. It's been a bit of a pain in the bum. And this is where I realised I actually need to put my leaves on first. I suppose you could do it the other way, but I actually prefer the way it looks this way round. So, and they line up perfectly, absolutely perfectly. When we get to the card part, the outer card, I do realise afterwards, even though I cut it the same height as the Shadowbox card, which is about 2 3/4, it's slightly taller than my Shadowbox, so my trees don't fit quite as well as this, but I just rolled with it. So you're going to move your 2 flaps over without the sticky and fold that other side piece on, and that creates your Shadowbox. So this in essence is your Shadowbox. This is how simple, and I have done another video on a Shadowbox, but I am happy to do more. I just need to not leave it so long before I do another one. So that's essentially your Shadowbox, and then you can fill it with bunnies, or I've got bunnies from the die set, the spring add-on. And then I'm going to actually stick this into my card base. So my card base is the same color card as the Shadowbox, and I'm going to add some tape to the back of the Shadowbox to start with, which is why I also put the, sealed it at the back, so you're not going to see it. And I'm going to stick that into the fold of the card base. The card base measures 11 scored at 5.5 by 2 3/4. So I'm just butting it up into the fold line, and that sticks it inside the back part of the card. And then on this side panel I'm going to add some more adhesive, and that will stick that side piece to the inside of the card as well, so that when you open the card, the Shadowbox will open. So it's just the coolest thing. I saw someone else do this and I had to try it, but it is a lot of die cutting if you're going to do it this way. But isn't that cool? I think that's such a cool idea. So the front of the Shadowbox again, and I've got leaves and trees and all sorts, and a lot of them. So this is why I say make sure you've got enough of that color. If you want all the colors to be to be cohesive throughout your whole inside shadow of the Shadowbox card, open pop-up card, whatever I'm calling this, make sure you've got enough of the same color. You could have 2 different shades of green for the leaves on the trees, or that sort of thing, and that actually would probably look really nice as well. But I wanted them all the same. All my flowers are the same. You could do different colors for all the different flowers. You could do different shades of brown and green for the trees and the grass and all that sort of thing, but I wanted to keep it quite uniform. So just make sure you've got enough. So the Shadowbox, they fit perfectly, but you'll see that there will be a little gap when I come to actually adding on the leaf to the trees to the card part of the card. That made any sense. So and I'm just using a glue dot to stick these last little pieces in there, just so that it lies flat. And this is just, it's so cute. It's so cute. I did enjoy doing this, but there is a lot of die cutting. There is a lot of you kind of have to think about what you're doing a little bit, which now that I've done one, I have a much better idea. So but it's really quite straightforward. So this left hand panel is actually quite easy, because all I'm going to do is trim off the like tabs on the flower and the grass, and then they will fit in there very nicely. So for this left hand side is very easy. I do, however, trim off a couple of the flowers themselves, because they land up behind the trees and it makes it very bulky. So you'll see that in a minute as well. I'm just using my paper trimmer to trim down the grass and the flowers here. Just roughly. To be honest, by the time you've got I did say the stems of the trees, the what are they called? The trunks of the trees. You're not going to see if there's a gap. You're not going to see that, so it's fine. So I thought what I'd do is start off by getting the leaves, the grass onto the flowers. And so for me, the easiest thing is to put a piece of tape at the base of the flowers and then just add the grass on. And that way you've got your piece ready to go. And then you can just tape the whole thing into the card. So for one of them, can't remember which side I started with. Right, so I'm on the left hand side and I'm just trying to find the best angle to get this on here. So I'm lining it up somewhat straight in the, somewhat in the middle of that piece, of that panel. And like I say, once you've got the trunks on, you're not going to see that little gap on either side. And then for this one, I'm going to try and just, I think I was trying to be clever with like where I was lining things up and all that. What I should have done with this is, again, this is because I've not done this before, you learn as you go. What I should have done is actually cut it in half, because on to the left of that piece, what I'm showing you here, is another side panel to the shadow box, which I also then cover. So what I should have done is just cut this grassy bit, flowery bit in half, and then I would have the other half for the blue panel that's facing us right now. So I had to go back and recreate because the other piece wouldn't fit in there and all. So yeah. So I'm getting my trees on the left hand panel, and this is where I realized that actually there's a lot of bulk underneath one part of the trunk. So I lifted it up carefully and actually snipped a couple of the flowers off. Works perfectly. It just helps to flatten that part of the card. And then here I'm trimming off some more for I believe for one of the side panels, so that I can get the flowers in there. And here's where you'll see I'll snip a couple of the flowers off so that where the tree trunks are, there's no bulk, and it makes a big difference. Like I didn't realize that obviously at the time because I was just flying by the seat of my pants when I was doing this one, but it makes a big difference when you trim down that. It's less bulky for this card. This card's, it's not particularly bulky in the sense that when you put it in an envelope it folds pretty flat, but there's a lot going on. There's a lot of layers. There's a lot of layers. So I wanted to make this as unbulky that's it, I don't even know if I'm making any sense anymore, as possible. So of course I managed to just about salvage enough of the same color brown and green for my trees, and managed to get them stuck in there. I do realize of course at this point that this green is actually not the same color green. You'll see that in a second. Panic. Can you see it's totally different green? It's more like a lime green. So I had to go and dig out and see if I could find enough of the other green, which I did, thankfully, just because I wanted all of my greens to be the same, all my browns to be the same. Like I say, on the outside you'll see it's totally different, brown and green, but I'll use those those leaves that I've just cut in the wrong color. I will use those on the outside, so at least I'm not wasting them. And then here's my little side panel. And it just, the more I kept going with this, the better it started to look. It just got better and better and better. It was just, and it was so much fun. And by the time I'd done it, I was really quite proud of it. but it is, like I say, there's an awful lot of die cutting. But Lawn Fawn make amazing dies, and and the stamps as well. But the dies, even if these all stand alone, you don't need. There's no stamps on here. I stamped a sentiment, but there's no image stamps on here. This is all die cuts, and they just do the most amazing stuff. I love how everything works together. Everything's sized right so that it all works together. Even if you're using the stamped images, it's all the right proportions, and I just adore it. What I nearly forgot was the front here. There's that blue line from the shadow box, so I cut another piece of green grass, and I actually cut this down twice because I decided it needed to be quite a thin, well, not twice, but I realized it needed to be quite a thin piece of grass just for that edge. But again, it makes a big difference. But can you see how everything is starting to come together? There's a lot of depth, there's lots of dimension, but there's no real, like, I mean, I know the shadow box has got things that are sticking up because obviously it's a shadow box, so you can see there's like layers within the shadow box, but there's nothing really, I want to say nothing dimensional there is because of the shadow box, but there's nothing popped up. This is all laid flat. So my bunnies, I cut 3 each of them, and actually their eyes, I thought, oh, I'm going to have to do something with the eyes, maybe cut out black cardstock and then do like an inlay. And actually when I was doing this, I realized that their eyes they stayed within the die cut. So I just added a black dot to their eyes, and then to stop the eyes from actually falling out if they ever did, which sounds wrong, I know, I just put a piece of washi tape behind it, behind each of the eyes, and that will just hold it in place. You're not going to see any of that. Most of these are going to be flat, so you're just not going to see it. So that way I can stick the bunnies on where I want them, and they're going to look so cute. But the having the little black eye, it was enough. I think if I'd die cut the eyes and added black cardstock into where the eyes are, I don't know that it would have worked quite as nicely. I mean, it would look fine, but I just thought this was actually, they look quite dainty still. So I'm just trying to decide where to put all my bunnies and then just getting some tape and just sticking them flat. Again, there's no foam tape, nothing like that. Just straight flat onto each little, I guess they're like mini scenes, but it's not. If you imagine this being one long area of trees and flowers and bunnies, that's kind of what I was going with. So this is kind of the fun bit, is trying to work out where you want to put your images, whether they die cut or whether they stamped and coloured images. It's just working out where you want to put everything. And this for me is what creates a scene, and it makes it look so cool as well, is once you start to put the characters into your play. Let's do that like a storybook almost. So you're putting the little, you're putting all your characters into the storybook where you want them to be. So and there is basically the inside done. I did forget butterflies. I did actually have some butterflies, but anyway. I'm also going to use some bunny Lawn Fawn stamp set for the sentiment, and I basically took another piece of blue cardstock, cut it slightly smaller than the outside size of the card, and then used the Friends of Flowers That Never Fade sentiment. I just thought this was cute. So it's not specifically spring or Easter, but it is spring, definitely a springy card, but it's not specific to that. So you could use this for an Easter, spring, or just a friendship card. So again, here's the wrong green and brown, but actually because it's on the outside of the card, it works really well. So I'm adding a tree to one side, and then I'm going to cut down another tree and add it to the right hand side as well. I actually cut this a little longer, and I do trim it up in a second, because it just didn't look right. And again, these are really easy to just line up and on the edge of the card, and they just make a big difference. I just think it looks very cool. But here's where I just decided that needed to be a little bit shorter. I think because of the gap on the other side, I don't know, that just looked better to me. And then because I had totally forgotten about the butterflies that I cut for this card, they were supposed to go on the inside. I didn't know what to do on the outside. At this point, I was just, that card took me, the inside took so long to do that I didn't actually know what to do with the outside. So I decided to use the butterflies on the outside, and I think it works really well. So I'm just arranging the smaller of the two butterflies, which I believe come from the, I want to say they're from the spring add-on. But I just arranged them 3 different shades of like a turquoisey blue color, and then just popped them on with some glue and this is like a nail, like what nail technicians would use for those tiny little like fancy schmancy things they put on nails. That's what that tool is. So I know there are some in the craft industry as well, but this was just, it works the same for me. So, and it wasn't as expensive. And then some strong tape on the back there. I'm going to stick it to the front of the card, and then I am going to add one more thing to the butterflies just to add a bit of something else on the front, because again, although the inside is like holy hell because there's a lot going on in there, the outside is very quite, I think is quite plain. So for the butterflies, I also grabbed a Nouveau White Blizzard crystal drops, and these are, it's like a clear glittery glue, I guess, or drop. And once it dries, you can't see it so much now, but once it dries, it really sparkles. So I thought it's one of my favorites. If you want to add some sparkle but not have any color, then this is great, because the color underneath will show through, but there'll be tons of sparkle on it. Could have used glossy accents as well, so something with a lot of shine, that would have worked too, but I just thought butterflies need to sparkle. I don't know why, but they do. So I have sparkly butterflies. And I think it just added to the front of the card, because like I say, the front's quite plain, I think. It's okay. I probably could have done better on the front, but yeah, I was where I was at that point. But then when somebody opens the card, it's like, bam, look at that. Like I say, it was a lot of fiddling, a lot of die cutting, a lot of pieces. But once I got it done, I love looking at it. It's just one of those things that you want to open and close constantly, because it's just so cool. And then you can see the shadow box in the middle there. So I hope you've enjoyed this. I'm sorry it was such a long video, but it had to be for this one. And I hope that if you have a shadow box, I have before dies, I actually made my own shadow box. But I hope you give this a try. It's such good fun. And yeah, thanks for staying. If you've come all the way to the end, thanks for staying. And I will see you in the next one, guys. Bye.